Ladies and gentlemen, listen to me today. The future is not in your hands. It is in God's hands. Too many people live in fear of tomorrow because they think their future depends on their own ability, their own strength, their own intelligence. But I came to tell you, your future is not your responsibility to control. It is your responsibility to trust. God has already written your destiny before you were even born. He told the prophet Jeremiah, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart." That means before your first breath, God had a plan for your life. You don't have to beg for it. You don't have to chase it. You don't have to manipulate people to get it. Your future is already secured in His divine purpose. And the reason many people live in anxiety, frustration, and depression is because they are trying to control what is not theirs to control. But the moment you surrender your plans to the one who created you, that's when you find peace. The future is not something to be feared. It is something to be trusted in God's hands. He holds time in His palm. He knows the end from the beginning. What looks like uncertainty to you is already completed in His sight. You may be facing obstacles today. Maybe you're dealing with financial struggles, family problems, or sickness in your body. Maybe you feel like your dreams are too far away, but I declare to you, your future is in God's hands. He is the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. No economy can cancel what He has planned for you. No government can erase His purpose for your life. No enemy can stop the assignment He has placed on you. The problem is not the future, the problem is our faith. If you believe that your future is in your own hands, you will always live in stress. But if you believe that your future is in God's hands, you will walk in confidence. You will move in boldness. You will stand firm even when storms come, because you know that the one who holds your future is faithful. Some of you have been crying about what you lost. You have been weeping over missed opportunities. But I came to tell you, God is not finished with you yet. He knows how to restore what was stolen. He knows how to open doors that were shut. He knows how to reposition you for something greater. Do not put your trust in man. Do not put your trust in circumstances. Do not put your trust in your own strength. Put your trust in the one who holds your destiny in His hands. You are not an accident. You are not a mistake. You were created for purpose, and God's purpose cannot be destroyed. Your responsibility is not to figure out how the future will unfold. Your responsibility is to obey Him today. Walk by faith, not by sight. Move forward with confidence, not with fear. Serve with excellence, not with doubt. When you do your part, God will do His. The world is filled with uncertainty, but God is never uncertain. The world changes, but He never changes. If He said He has a plan for you, trust that plan. If He said He will make a way, believe that way is already being made. If He said He will bless you, walk like you are already blessed. The future is not in your hands. It is in God's hands. And when you place your life in His hands, you are in the safest place you could ever be. Trust Him, follow Him, and watch Him take you where you never imagined. Before you took your first breath, before your name was ever spoken, before you even had a chance to dream, God had already written your future. You are not an accident. You are not a coincidence. You were intentionally designed by a creator who knew exactly why He made you and what He planned for you to accomplish. The future is not something you have to figure out on your own. because God has already ordained it. Your responsibility is not to create your destiny. It is to discover it and walk in obedience to it. God told the prophet Jeremiah, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart." That means your future was established before your past even began. Your life is not a result of chance or luck, but of divine intention. Everything about you, your gifts, your personality, your strengths, and even your struggles has been factored into the plan God has for your life. Too often people spend their time worrying about what tomorrow holds, questioning whether they will succeed or fail, wondering if they are on the right path. But the truth is, God has already determined the course of your life, and nothing can alter his divine purpose for you. When you understand that your future is in God's hands, it changes the way you live. You no longer have to operate in fear. You no longer have to compare yourself to others or strive to be something you were never meant to be. You don't have to chase success, because success is not something you manufacture. It is something you step into when you align with God's will. The problem is that many people spend their time trying to design their own destiny instead of surrendering to the one God has already prepared. They try to manipulate circumstances, control outcomes, and force doors open. But what God has for you does not require manipulation. It only requires faith. The fact that God has already ordained your future also means that nothing you have been through is wasted. Some people believe that because they have failed, because they have made mistakes, because they have taken detours in life, they have ruined their destiny. But God is not limited by your past. He is not confused by your mistakes. He already knew every decision you would make, and he still called you. He still chose you. He still has a purpose for you. In fact, what you thought was a setback may actually be a setup for what God is about to do next. Think about Joseph in the Bible. God gave him a vision of his future, but everything that happened in his life seemed to contradict that vision. He was thrown into a pit, sold as a slave, falsely accused, and thrown into prison. But despite all of this, the plan of God for his life never changed. No betrayal, no false accusation, and no hardship could cancel what God had ordained. At the right time, God elevated him to the position of leadership he had destined for him all along. If Joseph's future was in his own hands, he would have been stuck in bitterness, anger, and frustration. But because he understood that God was in control, he remained faithful, and in the end, he stepped into the destiny that had been prepared for him. The same is true for you. No matter where you are today, your future is not determined by your circumstances. It is determined by God's plan. And that plan cannot be stopped by people, by mistakes, or by challenges. What God has spoken over your life will come to pass, but it requires trust. It requires surrender. You may not always understand why certain things happen. You may not see the full picture, but you must believe that the one who created you has already gone ahead of you, preparing the way. God does not make mistakes. He does not create without purpose, and he does not abandon what he starts. You are a part of his divine plan, and everything you need to fulfill your purpose has already been placed inside you. But you must stop trying to take control of what belongs to him. When you try to force things to happen in your own strength, you become frustrated. But when you surrender, when you say, Lord, I trust you with my future, that is when you find peace. That is when you find clarity. That is when you begin to walk in the fullness of your purpose. The enemy wants you to believe that your future is uncertain, that you must struggle and strive to secure your destiny. But the truth is, your future is already secured in God. He is not figuring things out as you go. He is not making adjustments based on circumstances. He has already written the script, and it is a script of victory. The challenge is that you may not always understand the process. There will be seasons when things do not make sense. There will be times when it feels like nothing is happening. But in those moments, you must remember that God is always working, even when you cannot see it. Abraham was given a promise that he would be the father of many nations. But years went by and he saw no evidence of that promise coming to pass. He could have doubted, he could have given up, but instead he chose to believe that God was faithful. And in due time, what God had spoken came to pass. The future God has for you is not based on human timelines. It is not limited by natural circumstances. What he has planned will come to pass at the appointed time. This is why you must walk in faith. The enemy will try to distract you with worry, with fear, with doubt. But your responsibility is not to figure out how everything will work. It is to trust that God has already worked it out. Instead of worrying about tomorrow, focus on obeying God today. Seek Him. Serve Him. Walk in obedience and trust that He will lead you exactly where you need to be. Your future is in His hands, and His hands are the safest place you could ever be. Fear is a silent thief. It creeps into the hearts of people and robs them of their peace, their confidence, and their joy. It makes them doubt their potential, second guess their decisions, and hesitate when they should be moving forward. But the greatest deception of fear is that it convinces people that their future depends on them, that they are responsible for determining every outcome, and that if they don't have all the answers, they are destined for failure. This is the reason so many people live under stress, frustration, and anxiety. They believe that their success or failure is in their own hands, so they carry burdens they were never meant to bear. But the truth is, your future does not belong to you, it belongs to God. You were never meant to navigate life on your own, trying to figure out what happens next. The reason so many people feel overwhelmed is that they are trying to control something that is beyond their capacity to manage. They worry about things they cannot change. They stress over situations that are completely outside of their power. But the moment you realize that your future is in God's hands, the weight of fear begins to lift. You no longer have to wake up every day wondering if you are doing enough, if you are good enough, if you are capable enough. Because when God is the one writing your story, you can be sure that He will finish what He started. Look around the world today. People are constantly in fear of what will happen next. The economy fluctuates, governments rise and fall, unexpected tragedies shake the nations, and people feel powerless. They fear losing their jobs, losing their health, losing their stability. But fear only thrives where faith is absent. When you truly understand that God is in control, fear loses its power over you. You may not know what tomorrow holds, but you know the one who holds tomorrow. You may not understand the process, but you trust the one who has already designed the outcome. One of the biggest lies the enemy tells people is that their future is uncertain. He makes them believe that they must fight for their destiny, that they must struggle to secure their place, that they must constantly prove their worth to be successful. But when God is the one who holds your future, no one can take what he has prepared for you. No person, no failure, no mistake, no opposition can cancel what God has spoken over your life. If he has destined you for greatness, then greatness is inevitable. If he has planned for you to rise, then no force in hell can keep you down. Too often, people allow fear to paralyze them. They become afraid of taking risks, afraid of stepping out in faith, afraid of moving beyond their comfort zones. But God never called you to live in fear. He called you to walk in confidence, knowing that your future is already secure in him. The reason fear dominates so many lives is that people focus too much on what they can see. They look at their bank accounts, their circumstances, their abilities, and their resources, and they measure their future by what is in their hands instead of what is in God's hands. But God never operates based on what you see. He operates based on what he has already planned. Think about the story of the Israelites when they stood at the edge of the Red Sea. Behind them was the Egyptian army, and in front of them was an impossible obstacle. Fear filled their hearts because in the natural there was no way out. But what they didn't realize was that their future was not in their hands. It was in God's hands. He had already made a way before they even arrived at the sea. What seemed like an impossible situation was just another opportunity for God to reveal his power. And with one command, he parted the waters and made a path where there was none. This is why you cannot let fear dictate your decisions. Fear tells you to stay where you are because moving forward is too risky. Fear tells you to give up because success is uncertain. Fear tells you that you are not qualified, not talented enough, not strong enough, not smart enough. But fear is a liar. If God has placed a dream in your heart, he has already made provision for it. If he has given you a vision, he has already prepared the resources to bring it to pass. If he has called you to a purpose, he has already cleared the path ahead of you. The problem is never the future. The problem is our faith. God is always ready to fulfill his promises. But many people miss out on what he has prepared because they allow fear to keep them stuck. They spend their lives waiting for the perfect conditions, the perfect opportunities, the perfect timing. But faith does not wait for everything to be perfect. Faith moves even when things don't make sense. Faith steps out when fear says to sit down. Faith believes when logic says it's impossible. Faith trusts when circumstances say it will never happen. The moment you decide to put your future in God's hands, everything changes. You stop worrying about things you cannot control. You stop stressing over situations that are beyond your ability to fix. You start walking in boldness, knowing that you are not alone. The same God who spoke the universe into existence is the same God who has written your future. The same God who parted the Red Sea, who fed thousands with just a few loaves of bread, who raised the dead, is the same God who is guiding your steps. He has never failed, and he will not start now. So stop allowing fear to control your life. Stop letting doubt steal your dreams. Stop trying to hold on to something that was never meant to be in your hands. Your future is in God's hands, and there is no safer place to be. Walk in faith. Move forward with confidence, and trust that he who has begun a good work in you will be faithful to complete it. No obstacle can block God's plan for your life. No force on earth, no opposition, no setback, and no delay can cancel what He has ordained for you. When God speaks a word over your life, it is final. It does not matter who doubts you, who rejects you, or who stands against you. The only thing that can stop you from stepping into your God-given future is your own unwillingness to believe and obey. When you truly understand that God's plans cannot be stopped, you stop fearing the obstacles in front of you. You stop worrying about the limitations that others place on you. You stop doubting whether you are capable enough or strong enough, because you know that it is not about your strength. It is about His power working through you. People often allow circumstances to dictate their confidence in God's plan. They look at their challenges and start to believe that maybe they have been forgotten. Maybe the promise won't come to pass. Maybe they are not good enough. But obstacles are not a sign that God has abandoned you. In fact, many times, obstacles are an indication that you are on the right path. If Joseph had looked at his situation from a human perspective, he would have thought that his dreams were never going to come true. He was betrayed by his brothers, sold into slavery, falsely accused, and thrown into prison. If he had judged his future by his circumstances, he would have believed that he was a failure. But what he could not see at the time was that every obstacle was a part of God's plan to elevate him. What the enemy meant for evil, God was using for good. Your setbacks are not the end of your story. What looks like a delay is often a divine setup. God does not make mistakes, and He does not allow anything in your life without a purpose. If you are facing opposition, do not be discouraged. The presence of obstacles does not mean the absence of God. In fact, the greater the opposition, the greater the purpose. When David stood before Goliath, it seemed impossible that a shepherd boy could defeat a giant. The odds were against him. But the battle was never about David's strength. It was about God's power. Goliath was not an obstacle, he was a door. Without Goliath, David would have remained an unknown shepherd. But because he trusted God, that battle became the moment that launched him into his destiny. Some of the things you are facing right now are not there to stop you. They are there to reveal God's power in your life. The enemy wants you to believe that your difficulties are a sign that God's plan is failing. But God wants you to see that your difficulties are actually positioning you for something greater. Every time you trust Him in the middle of a challenge, your faith grows stronger. Every time you choose to believe instead of fear, you step closer to the future He has for you. God does not waste pain. He does not allow struggles without purpose. If you are walking through a storm, do not be discouraged. If you stay faithful, you will see that what was meant to destroy you will actually elevate you. Many people give up too soon because they do not understand this truth. They allow temporary struggles to make them quit on permanent promises. They see difficulty as a sign to turn back instead of a sign to push forward. But if you study Scripture, you will find that every person God used in a mighty way faced great challenges. Moses had to stand before Pharaoh. Esther had to risk her life before the king. Paul had to endure imprisonment. And Jesus himself had to endure the cross. But in every case, what seemed like an obstacle was actually a divine setup for victory. This is why you cannot allow obstacles to define your faith. You must learn to walk by faith, not by sight. If you only trust God when things are easy, then your faith is weak. Real faith trusts God in the fire, in the storm, in the prison, in the wilderness. Real faith believes even when nothing seems to be working. God never promised that the journey would be easy, but he did promise that you would reach your destination. There are people who have allowed a single failure to make them quit. They tried once and it didn't work, so they assumed God was not with them. But failure is not the end of the story. Just because something didn't work the first time does not mean it is over. The Bible says that a righteous man falls 7 times, but he gets back up again. The question is not whether you will face difficulties. The question is whether you will rise again when they come. If you could see your future the way God sees it, you would never doubt again. If you could see the doors he's about to open, the favor he is about to release, the breakthroughs that are just ahead, you would walk with confidence. But the reason God does not show you everything in advance is that he wants you to trust him. He wants you to believe even when you cannot see. He wants you to keep moving forward even when the road is unclear. Nothing can stop God's plan for your life, but you must be willing to walk in faith. The enemy will try to discourage you, but you must choose to keep believing. People may doubt you, but you must choose to trust in what God has spoken. Circumstances may seem impossible, but you must remember that nothing is impossible for God. The plan he has for you is greater than anything you could imagine. He is preparing you, shaping you, refining you, and positioning you for the promise. The obstacles you see today will one day be the testimony that proves God's faithfulness in your life. What he has started, he will finish, and no force on earth can stop it. Faith is the key to unlocking your future. Without faith, you will always live in fear. Without faith, you will hesitate when you should move forward. Without faith, you will remain stuck in places you were never meant to stay. Faith is not just a feeling. It is a decision to trust God even when you cannot see the outcome. It is choosing to walk forward when the path is unclear. It is believing that what God has spoken will come to pass even when circumstances seem to say otherwise. Faith does not require evidence. It does not need physical proof. Faith moves even when nothing seems to be happening. This is why the Bible says we walk by faith, not by sight. If you only believe when things are easy, that is not faith, that is comfort. Faith is trusting God when everything around you looks the opposite of what he promised. It is standing firm when storms are raging. It is choosing to declare victory even when defeat seems inevitable. Many people miss their destiny because they refuse to walk in faith. They wait for certainty before they move. They want everything to be guaranteed before they take a step. But that is not how God operates. He does not give you all the details in advance. He does not show you every step of the journey before you begin. He simply says, trust me. And those who trust him are the ones who see his power in their lives. Think about Abraham. God told him to leave his homeland and go to a place that he would show him. Abraham had no map, no clear destination, just a promise. He had to walk in faith, believing that God would guide him as he moved forward. And because he trusted God, he became the father of many nations. But what if he had refused to move? What if he had waited for more details? He would have missed the future that God had already prepared for him. Faith is not just about believing, it is about acting on that belief. You can say you trust God, But if you refuse to step out when he calls you, then your actions prove otherwise. Too many people have faith in their words, but not in their walk. They say they believe in God's promises, but when it is time to move, they hesitate. They let fear stop them. They let doubt creep in. They let obstacles intimidate them. But real faith does not stop when things look difficult. Real faith moves forward, knowing that God will make a way. This is why the enemy attacks your faith. He knows that if he can weaken your faith, he can keep you from stepping into the future God has for you. He will whisper lies that make you doubt God's promises. He will magnify your challenges to make them seem bigger than God's power. He will use fear to paralyze you so that you never take the steps necessary to reach your destiny. But you must fight back with faith. When the enemy tells you it is impossible, declare that with God all things are possible. When fear tells you to quit, remind yourself that God has not given you a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. When doubt tells you that you are not good enough, stand on the truth that God's strength is made perfect in your weakness. Faith is the difference between those who fulfill their purpose and those who live in regret. Some people will stand before God one day and realize that they never reached their full potential, not because God's plan failed, but because they refused to believe. They allowed fear to control them. They waited too long. They hesitated when they should have moved. But God is looking for people who will trust him fully. People who will step out even when they do not have all the answers. People who will walk in faith even when the path is unclear. When Peter saw Jesus walking on the water, he asked if he could come to him. Jesus said, "Come." In that moment, Peter had a choice. He could stay in the boat where it was safe, or he could step out in faith. And for a moment, Peter walked on water. He did what was impossible because he was focused on Jesus. But the moment he looked at the waves, fear took over and he began to sink. This is what happens when you take your eyes off God and focus on your problems. The moment you let fear override your faith, you start sinking. But even then, when Peter cried out for help, Jesus reached out and saved him. This proves that even when your faith wavers, God is still there to lift you up. Faith is not about never feeling fear. It is about refusing to let fear control you. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is moving forward in spite of it. When God calls you to do something, fear will always try to talk you out of it. Fear will tell you that you are not ready. It will tell you that you are not qualified. It will remind you of every past failure. But faith says, if God called me, then he will equip me. If God promised it, then he will bring it to pass. If God is for me, then nothing can stand against me. Your future is not in your hands. It is in God's hands. But the key to unlocking that future is faith. If you do not trust him, you will delay his plan for your life. If you do not obey, you will miss opportunities that were meant for you. But if you believe, if you step out in faith, if you move when he says move, then you will see miracles. You will see doors open that no one can shut. You will walk in favor that you did not earn. You will enter into the destiny that was written for you before you were even born. Faith is what activates God's promises. It is what turns potential into reality. It is what separates those who talk about greatness from those who actually step into it. The question is not whether God has a future for you. The question is whether you have the faith to step into it? Will you trust him when things are uncertain? Will you obey him when the path is unclear? Will you believe when everything in the natural says it is impossible? Because if you do, then nothing can stop you from reaching the destiny that God has already prepared. Obedience is the bridge between where you are and where God is taking you. It is not enough to know that your future is in God's hands. You must be willing to follow his direction. Many people miss their destiny not because God's plan failed, but because they refused to obey his instructions. They prayed for guidance, but when God spoke, they hesitated. They asked for doors to open, but when the opportunity came, they allowed fear and doubt to hold them back. But obedience is not optional when it comes to fulfilling your purpose. It is the very key that unlocks the future God has prepared for you. God does not give instructions without a purpose. When he tells you to move, it is because he has already prepared the next step. When he tells you to wait, it is because he is working behind the scenes. When he tells you to let go, it is because he has something better in store. But too often, people try to negotiate with God. They want to obey on their terms, at their convenience, and in their own timing. They want the promise without the process. But faith is not just about believing, it is about obeying, even when you do not understand. Look at Noah. God told him to build an ark when there was no sign of rain. From a human perspective, it did not make sense. People mocked him, questioned him, and probably called him crazy. But Noah obeyed. He did not wait for visible evidence. He trusted that if God said it, it would come to pass. His obedience saved him and his family. Imagine what would have happened if he had waited until he saw the first drop of rain before starting. It would have been too late. Delayed obedience is disobedience. When God speaks, you must act, even when it does not make sense. Some people wonder why they feel stuck in life. They pray for God to move, but they refuse to follow the last instruction he gave them. They ask for new opportunities, but ignore the steps he already told them to take. God will not give you the next step if you have not obeyed the last one. He is not obligated to reveal the full picture. He only requires you to take the step he has placed in front of you. Every act of obedience moves you closer to your destiny. Every step you take in faith leads you further into God's purpose for your life. Abraham had to leave his home without knowing where he was going. Moses had to stretch out his staff over the Red Sea before the waters parted. Joshua had to march around Jericho before the walls fell. Peter had to cast his net into the water before the miraculous catch happened. Every miracle in the Bible was preceded by an act of obedience. God's power is released when people take him at his word and act accordingly. The problem with many people is that they want certainty before they obey. They want to see the outcome before they take the step. But that is not how faith works. God often requires you to move first, and then he reveals the results. He does not give you all the answers in advance because he wants you to trust him. If you knew every detail beforehand, there would be no need for faith. The reason he only shows you one step at a time is because he wants you to depend on him, not on your own understanding. Obedience requires trust. When God asks you to do something difficult, do you trust that he knows what he is doing? When he asks you to leave something behind, do you trust that he has something better ahead? When he asks you to step out of your comfort zone, do you trust that he will provide everything you need? Your willingness to obey is a reflection of your faith. If you truly believe that your future is in God's hands, then you will obey without hesitation. Many people have missed their blessings because they were unwilling to obey. They let fear hold them back. They let doubt creep in. They listen to the opinions of others instead of listening to God's voice. But obedience is better than sacrifice. It does not matter how much you pray if you are unwilling to obey. It does not matter how much you declare your faith if your actions do not align with your words. God honors obedience. When you follow his instructions, he makes a way where there is no way. He opens doors that no one can shut. He provides resources that you never expected. Some instructions from God will not make sense in the moment. He may tell you to give when you feel like you need more. He may tell you to walk away from something that looks good. He may tell you to forgive someone who hurt you. But obedience is not about understanding, it is about trust. You may not see the full picture, but God does. You may not understand why he is leading you in a certain direction, but he knows what is best. Every act of obedience is positioning you for the blessings he has prepared. The enemy will always try to convince you to delay your obedience. He will whisper lies, telling you that it is not the right time, that you are not ready, that you need more confirmation. But delayed obedience is still disobedience. Every time you hesitate, you give the enemy room to plant doubt and fear. But when you obey immediately, you shut the door to the enemy's tactics. You step into divine alignment. You place yourself in position for the fulfillment of God's promises. If you want to walk in the fullness of your destiny, you must be willing to obey God completely. Partial obedience is still disobedience. If he tells you to move, do not stay. If he tells you to stay, do not move. If he tells you to give, do not hold back. Your future is already secure in his hands. But you must be willing to take the steps he is asking you to take. God is not looking for perfect people. He is looking for obedient people. He does not expect you to have all the answers. He simply wants you to trust him. He is not asking you to figure everything out. He is asking you to follow his lead. If you will trust and obey, you will see his power manifest in your life in ways you never imagined. The doors you have been praying for will begin to open. The provision you have been waiting for will come. The breakthroughs you have been believing for will happen. But it all starts with obedience. The question is not whether God has a future for you. The question is whether you are willing to obey him completely, without hesitation, without compromise, and without delay. Because when you do, nothing will be able to stop you from walking in the fullness of his divine plan. Your future is not in your hands. It is in God's hands. No obstacle, no delay, no opposition, and no human opinion can stop what he has already ordained for you. The only thing that can hinder you is your own unwillingness to trust, believe, and obey. Faith is the key that unlocks his promises. But faith without action is dead. You must be willing to step out when he calls, to move forward even when you cannot see the full picture, and to trust that his plans are greater than anything you could ever imagine. God does not waste pain, nor does he make mistakes. Every challenge, every delay, and every detour has a purpose. What seems like a setback is often a setup for something greater. The enemy may try to use fear, doubt, and obstacles to discourage you, but when you keep your eyes on God, nothing can shake you. He has already gone before you. He has already made the way. Your responsibility is to walk in faith, to obey his instructions, and to refuse to be ruled by fear. You were created for a divine purpose. God has written your destiny before you were even born. He knows the plans he has for you. Plans to prosper you, not to harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future. But you must trust him. You must be willing to move when he says move, to wait when he says wait, and to let go when he says let go. Your future is secure in his hands. And when you walk in obedience, nothing can stop you from reaching the destiny he has prepared. Do not allow fear to rob you of your future. Do not allow doubt to delay your breakthrough. Do not let hesitation keep you from stepping into the greatness that is already written for you. Walk in faith, trust in his timing, obey his voice, because when you do, you will see his power, his favor, and his blessings unfold in ways you never imagined. Your future is not uncertain. It is divinely orchestrated. And when you fully surrender to his plan, you will step into the life he has destined for you, a life of purpose, victory, and unstoppable success.